71 BMW R60/5 has been converted to a R80. I have a video on that. You might want to watch. It gives you a 50 more cylinder, 50 more cc's than a 750. This was a 60, so we're getting 200 more cc's. But more importantly, the carburation on these is so much better. I got like a 90s vintage, the diaphragm carb off like a /7 or /8, something in the 90s, I think. So anyway, 71 BMW R60 converted to an R80. Going to do a cylinder head torque and a valve adjustment on it. This is because I've got 500 miles on this bike now since the cylinders were replaced. So the first time you do this, 500 miles or so, and every 4,000 miles after that. Torque the cylinder heads, adjust the valves. Okay, here we go. The procedure is the same for all these airheads. I recommend looking up the tolerances. The cylinder head torque spec and the valve clearance are pretty much always the same, but I'm not going to be, the disclaimer is you look up those numbers. Today I'm going to be using 6 thousandths and 8 thousandths for intake and exhaust respectively. Most manuals will say that, but some differ, so you look that one up yourself. Okay, so here we go. We're cold engine. This is to be cold. I don't have 4,000 miles on this cylinder. On these cylinders, this conversion was done last year. I was riding it a year ago, last spring for the first time, and it's recommended to be done after about 500-600 miles from when you first put a new cylinder on. Anytime you replace a cylinder, have it off for any reason. So the left side and the right side are the same procedure. I'm just going to do the left side here. Got the camera set up on this side. So obviously first thing you do is pull the spark plug. Got to pull this little rubber grommet right here next to the oil dipstick. We're going to see the flywheel in there for our top dead center. Spark plug looks a little bit on the rich side. Not too bad, but I might look at that. Take a little adjustment on that possibly. Okay, there's 2 little nuts on the back side of your rocker cover. Wave washer on there, you don't want to lose that. Okay, the other one's right here, a little easier to get to. This is a job that most guys can do if you're somewhat handy. This isn't rocket science. See, I went and dropped my wave washer there, so gotta go hunt for that. Need my magnets, what I need. Stand by while I look. Oh, landed right here. Okay. Alright, so we got those. I have a little oil drip pan because there's always a little residual oil on these caps. The last thing you're going to pop off is I got the dropsies today. They're 13 millimeter. This is actually a nut. It looks like a bolt, but it's a nut. And remember, there's a washer here too. So again, where's my magnet? Okay, magnet, I'll set that right off and we won't lose it that way. Alright, so a rubber mallet, plastic mallet, and a drip pan. little tap, off she comes. And as you can see, I got some oil out of there, not a ton, but you'll make a mess if you don't have a good pan there, so. Should probably drip a little more while I'm here, but at least we got the bulk of it. All right, the reason we want to find top dead center, for two reasons. You need top dead center to adjust the valves because you want them loose. That's what you're doing, you're adjusting the clearance between the tappet lifter and the valve shaft itself, valve stem. And that gap is there when the valves are closed, so that's what we're looking for. And it's obviously, again, done cold. So we need top dead center for that. We also want we want no pressure on these valves. We want the valves closed for the torquing of the heads as well. To get the proper torque, you don't want the valves interfering with that measurement. All right, this is a 15 millimeter. There's two, top right here, and then the other two are actually going through the rocker arm support arms there, whatever you call those. So I guess it's the rocker arm itself. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll show you the order. I took a snapshot of the book, the order to torque these in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to back them off by 1/4. So it doesn't matter the order for this. But don't back off any more than a quarter of an inch, a quarter of a turn. You don't want to get too loose. For the purpose of not let, you don't want your push rod to kind of fall out. You don't want to get it so loose your push rod falls out. So, all right, so I gotta get my torque wrench. We're gonna torque this to 25 to 26 to 29 is our final setting. The book says to go 11, 19, and then final 26 to 29. So we'll set it, I don't think that's rocket science there, but that's foot-pounds. So there's 11 foot-pounds. So 11 foot-pounds, click. There's, basically you're just making sure you're going opposite. You can hear that click. And then it says bottom 5 and 6. Alright, so now we're going to go, it said 18 something, just go 20. I don't think it's rocket science for that purpose. Got kind of a weird torque wrench here. So there's 20 foot-pounds. Same sequence. And let's go 26 to 29. We'll just shoot for 27, I guess. It's 25, 26, 27. Here we go. Final torque. There we are. Our cylinder head is torqued. Now it's time to adjust the valves. Okay, I forgot to have it at top dead center when I did that. My bad. Made a point to say we had to do that and then I didn't do it. So the easiest way to do this is put it in a high gear. The lift is kind of nice. It's got the cutout back here. You can free up your rear wheel So the easiest way to find top dead center is you can do it with the start kick, get it kind of close. Okay, I just went by it just to see it. Now I gotta pull the other spark. Jeez. Okay, to find top dead center, I'm going to pull the other spark plug just to make it easier for the engine to turn over. We're going to do this side anyway. So I'm just pulling the plug. The side looks a little bit better as far as the mixture, if you can see that. Nice light brown. This cylinder was running a little rich. So both plugs are out now. The cutout back here, you remove the plate and you can get the rear wheels to spin. It's kind of nice. So I got a flashlight on this. Turn the wheel. I got it in gear. I got it in third or fourth. I don't know. It's in a high gear. And we'll just turn it over. Sure. Okay, the intake's opening. This is a way to kind of see how you're doing here. When it's getting close, the intake's open, intake's closed. So now we know we're coming up on compression for top dead center. So we have a S, a line, and OT. Lined right up with that mark right there. I'll get a better picture of that for you. Okay, so try to get the light there. So OT, can hardly see if there's a slot right there. And you want that lined up with OT. The line that says OT is actually a little dot. So it might be just a half a hair off. I'm going to bump that ever so slightly. Yeah, just barely. Perfect. So right at top dead center. Now we have both valves have a little slop in them. I'm going to retorque the cylinder heads and come right back. Okay, so I redid the torquing sequence that I just showed you now that we're at top dead center. So this is done correctly now, and we'll move on to the valve adjustment, the valve clearance adjustment. So it's easier than you might think. A 12 millimeter either open end or box. I like using a box wrench. And again, I got to get my feeler gauge. I'll be right back. Okay, valve clearance is 8 thousandths for the exhaust, 6 thousandths for the intake. And of course, we need a little bit more clearance on the exhaust. There's more heat. The valve's going to grow a little bit, so a little more clearance there. So feeler gauge, 8 thousandths. Okay, so I got 8 thousandths and a 6 thousandths. A lot of companies will sell you a different color hand, a little plastic handle with a different color. Makes it easier, but you don't need that. So you need two 12 millimeter box or open ends here. I'm going to do the exhaust first. So we got 8 thousandths for the exhaust, and should be snug but firm, but you should feel something. So I definitely need more clearance there. So this is the jam nut, the lock nut, and then you're actually adjusting this. It just acts on the push rod to give you more or less clearance against the push rod. So I'm gonna hold. Oh man, that's tight. Okay, so you loosen that, and then you turn. Actually, you can even do it with your hand. Where'd my feeler gauge go? There it is. Okay, so I'm looking to just turn this by hand and open her up, get 8 thousandths in there. Nice and firm, but it moves. And so every time you move the lock nut, you're going to affect that. So obviously the true test is when you are all locked up here. So got to hold your adjusting nut while you tighten the lock nut. See how the feeler gauge just fell out? That shows that opened it up just a bit. It feels nice though. I like that. I'm going to go with that. Can you hear that? Just a little scraping there, just snug, but not loose, not so tight that you can't hardly get the thing through there. Okay, 6,000 through the intake, and that feels pretty good. I don't think I really want to mess with that. It's just a bit tight, but the gauge goes in there. You know what? It's not that tight. It's actually just right. So I'm not going to mess with the intake. That's still good. Okay, the cylinder heads are retorqued. The valves are adjusted. I'm just going to clean out my valve cover a little bit here. Got a little grunge at the bottom of. Got some new valves. It almost looks like, you know, as they seated in. Getting this grunge down in here. So I'll clean these out good. Pop these back on. Okay, these valve cover is nice and clean now. I'm going to reuse this gasket. It's as long as you don't ruin it, tear it, or anything. These things can be used quite a few times with a cylinder or with the valve cover on and off a few times. Okay, this really can go either way. I kind of wished I had marked it just to make sure it goes the same way. I actually know which way it was because the dirt was down here, but I don't think it matters. As long as it's got a good gasket on, it's not going anywhere. Okay, coming back with my hardware, I'm going to put the center nut on first. Remember, there's a washer for it. Just a little snug for right now. I'm going to look up the torque setting on that. Okay, remember a wave washer, then the nut and the back bolts here. That one. And that was a 10 millimeter back here. Again, just barely snug. And we'll look up the torque settings on those. These back ones, I don't think it's too darn important. You really can't get a torque wrench on them. But this one I'll torque to the proper spec. Okay, rocker cover, cap nut 16 to 18. Foot pounds is 17. There you go. We'll put the spark plug back in and do the same thing on the other side. I'll leave the spark plug out because we want to turn the engine over. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. When I get the other side done, we'll give it a fire up and see how she's running. And that's how you torque cylinder heads every 4,000 miles. If you've had a cylinder off, do it 500 miles the first time, and then every 4,000. So every time you do the cylinder head, you got to do the valve adjustment. So that's all there is to it. All right, we'll be back once we get the other side done, and we'll fire this thing up. Okay, so we did the other side just like we did this side. I'm going to put the plug, rubber plug back in the sight hole for the flywheel. Pops right back in there. Put my stand back together here. Okay, I'm going to put spark plugs back in. I'm swapping them. I'm going to put the what was a little bit lighter brown, normal looking spark plug on this side, and the richer, blacker one that came from here, I'm going to put that on the other side. and see if they, next I'm going to pull them after a couple hundred miles or something and see if they've swapped colors. I'm assuming they are. I'm not going to adjust this carburetor right now. I just want to see. It wasn't horribly rich. Maybe just a smidge on the rich side is all. So we'll see what happens after swapping them out here. No big deal. Yeah, there's a proper torque on that. Just don't feel like looking it up right now. Okay, and I'll do the same on the other side. Spark plug in. Okay, spark plug back in, ignition wire back on. And let's see how she runs here. Okay, I've not started this bike yet this spring here. I'm going to change the oil and the filter on it, so I'm going to fire it up after the valve adjustment, see how she runs. And there we go. Okay, I'm having trouble with the starter. It's the first time I've tried to start this season, and I have no power to the starter. I know my battery's good, so I'll have to look into that. But for right now, we'll just start it up. I want to change the oil. I'll look into the starter problem here in a second or so. I have her down, the lift down, and we'll just go ahead and kick it. Wow. Okay, first kick and she's off. So my fan's still off here. Okay, I wanted to get my fan set back up there. Operating temp, and I'll change oil. I think everybody knows how to change oil in these things, so we'll just call it a day here. And thanks for watching. This was a Silverhead torque and valve adjustment. Anybody with average mechanical skills should be able to do this. And well, thank you for watching. All right, thanks.